I'm asked to welcome everyone on behalf of the board. And now Comrade Nandi have clearly stated that that must be a revolutionary welcome. So a revolutionary welcome takes long. So comrades must bear with me, right? I hope everybody already feels welcome. And that what I'm saying in terms of we love to have you here and we hope you are comfortable is not really necessary. But, you know, I'm saying it anyway. Welcome, comrades. I hope you traveled well, you slept well last night, and that the week will be useful and enjoyable to you. In terms of the board, obviously for us, like all of you, it was really a shock to lose Comrade Michael Blake. It was the first time in the history of Ilrig when something like that happened, when a staff member, an active staff member passed away. And for us as the board, it was a really sad occasion. All of us on the board are also activists, and we have worked with Michael in various roles and at various times quite closely. So it was not just like a staff member that passed away, it was really a comrade and a friend. And we are very happy that the comrades have scheduled a commemoration for Thursday, and also to see the program that focused so much on the issues that Michael prioritized and that Ilrig prioritized, but where Michael was often the point person, namely housing and community struggles generally. Like I said, something like this have never happened. If we think about Ilrig and the shocks of the past, it would probably be when Lenny got seriously ill, Lenny Gentle, who was the director a few years back. Luckily for the organization, for all of us, although Lenny was seriously ill, he's no longer seriously ill. He's with us, he's active, he's working in the struggle. And then before that, when the director of Ilrig, John Pape, was arrested by the FBI actually. And it was with the permission and cooperation of South Africa's government. That was also a big shock. And I'm talking about this, comrades, because I feel like as a board member, what I should be doing is just to maybe an unnecessary reminder of the past of Ilrig, of where we come from and what we've dealt with and what we were thinking at the time. I'm saying unnecessary because I know the comrades are quite aware of our history, and I know that as much as there are things we're not taking forward, there are also important things to take forward. Now, Comrade John, or now we know him as Comrade James Kilgore, it turned out the comrade was an activist even before we knew he was an activist. He was an activist in the US, and he participated there in armed actions against the capitalist system. Whether it was good or not, we can debate that, but that is what the comrade did, like many other comrades. And he had to run away from arrest, and he ended up first in Zimbabwe and South Africa, and he continued his activism, but this time not as an armed activist, but as a political activist, and ended up as an educator at Ilrig and a director at Ilrig. Now, I'm talking about John a lot because I'm reminded that when John was arrested, the Minister of Intelligence, who now wants to pretend that he is more progressive than anyone else, but the Minister of Intelligence at the time was a man called Ronald Wesso. And when Comrade John was in the cells of the FBI, and he was not allowed to write anything or to speak anywhere to defend himself. Ronnie Kasrils launched an attack on John that said, according to him, John had said, Ilrig and working class activists must lie to the working class. Working class leaders must lie to the working class. And he was referring to an article that John wrote. And I'm recalling this because it's part of the legacy of the past that I think is very important to take forward. This article, I don't recall the exact title, but it said, "Down with missionaries and down with pretending to be objective." Right? And what the comrade was saying is that educators, researchers, leaders, activists, thinkers, writers in the working class movement must take upon themselves to do their work in a very specific way. The comrade was saying, look, it is not possible to be an activist and to be a leader without having very strong views about a number of key issues. You have your own views, but you must not behave like a missionary who sees their role as to preach your own views all the time to the workers and to your colleagues and comrades. Actually, your role as an educator specifically was to explain and expose all of the key views that's relevant to the challenges of the working class, to the comrades you work with. Within that, you must be open and honest and say what your view is. But your main task is not to behave like a missionary and preach at people. The second part of the title referred to what I was already saying. He said, look, in the mainstream, academics, journalists, and so on, they pretend to be objective, to be neutral, actually. For them, they pretend to be neutral. But if you look at what they are doing, they are promoting capitalism and all the oppressions that go with it all the time. We must not pretend to be neutral. We must take a clear side, right? And say, this is where we stand, and be open and honest. And that will actually allow us to help, as educators, expose a range of views to comrades. So, for me, I think that is a very important legacy and tradition and history of the Globalisation School and of Ilrig's educational work that has become more and more important at this point, because we're living at a time of political crisis. The 1990s agreement is clearly breaking down. Now everybody is under pressure. There's a screaming match in our public discourse. You look on the TV, you look at N7, it's just the Guptas are great. You look at ENCA, it's just the Guptas are the source of every problem in South Africa. There's no attempt at being open-minded and sharing different views. And some of us within the working class movement is beginning under that pressure. Look, we live in the system. We are influenced in the system, by the system. And we are under that pressure beginning to behave in the same way. Yeah. Where if a comrade disagrees with me, I have no interest in creating the space for that comrade to share their views. I only want to push my own views, right? And there's a strong gender dynamic around that. Usually, it's the men silencing the women, right? So, comrades, creating the space for the different views, it's the responsibility of the Ilrig educators. And as a board, they are accountable for that, right? But it is the responsibility of all of us, because whether you're a board member and a participant a staff member, we are all accountable to the working class, right? And that is a central part of the mission of the working class. Now, comrades, what I maybe want to talk a little bit more about as another part of my revolutionary welcome, is the question of community movements, which feature very strongly together with the struggles of precarious workers. And I know sometimes there's comrades at the Globalization School and they complain that the person opening is using words like precarious workers and neoliberalism, and we don't understand. That's not a problem. The problem will be if on Friday when the school ends and no one has explained that, then that is the problem. So it's not my fault, comrades. But what I want to say is I'm really happy to see on the agenda the central place of community struggles and housing struggles. And I feel Ilrig is in a fantastic position because Ilrig, from the start, the end of the 90s, for me personally, there's the big debate when the new so-called service delivery struggle started, right? I, with a few other comrades, are arguing it started in a place in Cape Town called Crossroads, where a group of women, calling themselves the Women's Power Group, occupied the municipal office for 3 months because the municipality was giving houses for pals and houses for men only, right? And from 1998, we've seen increasingly these housing protests happening, right? And we've also seen very pointed efforts to organize those protests into a coordinated movement of the working class. In Cape Town, there was the anti-eviction campaign, there was the Local Government Transformation Forum, that later became the Cape Town Anti-Privatization Forum. In Durban, there was the Concerned Citizens Forum. There was also now Abaslali. In Johannesburg and Gauteng more broadly, there was various movements that eventually became the Anti-Privatization Forum. Later on, there was a movement called the People's Movement. So there were all these initiatives and attempts to organize and build a housing services community movement. And Ilrig was there. At every globalization school, you would see activists from the various struggles. Now those struggles those movements all ran into problems. And Ilrig was there all the way. Ilrig was there to witness, to record, it's in the papers there, to analyze why is there this upburst. There's a big formation of a coordinating thing, and suddenly later you find there's a downturn, there's infighting, and the organization collapses, right? Now comrades, this is a very serious challenge to understand that history as we go forward with the new initiatives. Because those comrades, like us, sat in globalization schools and analyzed how neoliberalism is causing the problems, the bad housing. So, doing that is not enough, right? We need to go deeper and ask, what was the political and organizational strategies? What was the political relationships like within those movements that maybe contributed to the fact that they went down? If we don't wrestle with that second part, then I am very afraid that we're just going to repeat that history of coming up, being strong, and then going down. So comrades, yeah, I'm sounding a bit critical, negative, questioning, but we know who to blame. It's Comrade Nandi. She told me to make it a revolutionary.